Hello everybody, welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown channel. I'm joined as always by my co-host Umar, who's a professional football scout and analyst, and today we're here to cover everything Omar Marmoush to Manchester City. Right, so starting straight away on Omar Marmoush, he's a 25-year-old forward. We'll get onto this later, but he's a 25-year-old forward from Eintracht Frankfurt. City have signed him for 75 million euros. That's the whole package, so that's add-ons included. And just for a quick lowdown, just before we get stuck into what he looks like for City, everything about him, the reason why he's cost 75 million euros is because in Europe's top 5 leagues, Omar Marmoush has scored the 5th most goals, he's got the 3rd most assists, the 2nd most direct goal involvements, and he's 1st for XG performance, which just measures how good he is at finishing chances this season. He's also 3rd for shots per 90 and goals created from take-ons, he ranks 1st. And shot creating actions, which is an action, whether it's a dribble, a pass, a cross, a tackle, anything, he's only behind Palmer, Fernandes, Rafinha, Kulusevski, Wirtz and Salah, who are some of the best players in the world in that metric across Europe. So it's very clear that this season Omar Marmoush has become one of Europe's best forwards for sure. But I want you to talk about straight away how I've got his stats here. So last season he scored 12 goals from an XG of 11.63, and this season he's already scored 15 goals from an XG of 8.8. So I want you to talk about how a player can go from sort of being bang on their averages in front of goal for their expected numbers, and how all of a sudden a formation change, a system change, a manager change, or the players around him, environment, can spark something that looks like a remarkable season in terms of he's doing Salah of performance in front of net. So I want you to just describe how Omar Marmoush has made this happen this season after not just banging him in for years and years, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so with Marmoush, he's a player I'm really impressed by. I think that is kind of it feels like a sudden change, but that change has come about for a number of reasons. I think when you're comparing goal score to the expected goals, you have to look at sort of the chances that he's putting away, and he's scoring a lot of sort of set piece goals. Naturally they're chances that are not of a high XG. So that does inflate that number a little bit. Secondarily, like with any team, like with any player, if you're used in a way that suits the qualities that you have, and you're given a bit more onus to showcase that quality, then you're going to obviously put up better numbers. And what we've seen from Marmoush this season is this ability to utilize all of his numerous strengths. And if I go through some of his strengths, actually, particularly as more of an attacking player, we can look to his incredible ability to run in behind. He's got great movement off the last line. He times his runs really well, and he's often been found making that movement into those positions behind the defensive line against teams in the Bundesliga who are playing with higher defenses. And if we're talking about transferability to the Premier League, that's something that we'll see again, because teams in the Premier League do try and push up. We'll talk about how he fares against sort of lower defences later on in the video. But that sort of running in behind is one hallmark of his game, and the reason why he's scored some more goals this season. On top of that is also his ability to get off a high volume of shots, even if they are sort of lower XG chances. They're still chances that are going in because of, one, the sheer volume of shots that he's taken, and two, sort of the ball striking ability that he does have. Now, he does snatch at the shots sometimes, but when he does hit those shots, because he's kind of focused on sort of a power in his ball striking, if he does catch it cleanly, and he often does, more often than not, he is putting those chances away at the moment. So there's some of his strengths. Whether or not he's doing it sort of inside right or in off the left, there's a versatility to those positions. He tends to, find that left corner more, by a large majority actually, in terms of his placement for those shots. And I think that suits him on the inside right. When he does cut in from the left, he sort of does a cutback shot, almost like that sort of Mbappe, where you fake to shoot in the right corner and then shoot it to the near post. So that explains his placement, but they're some of his strengths, and they're the reasons why he's putting up higher numbers this season than he has done before.
Yeah, I just want to. You just mentioned the positions he can take up, so where he can play. I've got a heat map here which shows that his highest or his most involved area on the pitch is this inside left channel here. He's got a massive red mark on his heat map here, and then if we actually look at his progressive carries map, we can see that he's also left-sided bias in terms of carrying the ball through these channels. Some of them are actually on the touchline, which opens us up to talk about his versatility and how City are going to use him. So at Frankfurt, they play a 3-4-2-1, and he plays as the 9 with 2 runners off him. We've got City set up here how you would usually see them in a 3-2-2-3 or whatever you want to call it, against a traditional 4-4-2 block that you would become familiar with in the Premier League. So I want you to touch on where he would play in this system, where he would excel.
Well, first of all, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I think you can play all front 5 positions. So what I'm going to do is I'll go through all of those positions and just sort of highlight what his strengths would be in those positions. So if we start in the sort of number 9 position, one, I think he offers an alternative to Erling Haaland. One, we need somebody to rest Erling Haaland a little bit. He's played numerous games, and Foden can obviously do that. Oscar Bob, when he comes back, can do that. And they've both been mentioned. But Marmoush is sort of, in my head, a Julian Alvarez replacement, in the sense that he can play directly as a number 9, or he can play in one of these sort of third central midfielder positions, like Alvarez did. And in that number 9 position, what he does particularly well is his ability to hold up. And I know that's not something you would associate with a very technical player, a very quick player, but the ability to receive the ball and then roll defenders. He uses his arms really well to push off defenders and keep them at bay. He dribbles with the foot furthest away from the opposition's defender, and he's fairly competent on both feet as well, so he can exit left and right. A hallmark to his game actually is the sort of chop that he does, and in doing so he can exit sort of behind him. So the ability to play at numerous angles is what allows him to play all 5 of these positions, but this sort of false 9 nature paired with the ability to run in behind means he's a fairly well-rounded striker, but he can contribute to that build-up a lot more than someone like Erling Haaland can, even though Erling Haaland has improved on that front. If we're talking about these inside positions, primarily played his game on that inside left position, but I really like him on the inside right because of that sort of shot across the box, the way that he carries, the way he can rotate out to that right flank. On the inside left, what he does really well is, particularly when he drops deep, because he resists pressure really well, he can pass the ball inside, infield, and then turn and make these runs in behind. When he is in these sort of number 10 positions, it's not just sort of trying to get a shot off, which he does well, and he scored some goals sort of edge of the area, but he also does play these nice dinks into the box from the edge of the area, which is something we saw Kovacic find McAtee with. We've lost it a little bit with Rodri, but now if he does come in, he can play those little dink passes into the box for one of the other late running midfielders. And then lastly, on the wings, less so on the right wing. We've not really seen him on the right wing.
I don't think this is going to be something. I think he's very much favouring coming inside and using his right foot coming inside, opening up his body. And he is a fast player. Yes. But I think this down the line isn't really where you'd see him. The only
reason I'd mention that is because Savinho, in the same way, likes to play on that way. Yeah. Guardiola's used him on the left flank a little bit for that traditional kind of footedness. But with Doku and players like that, Nunes pushing on and being that width, we've seen alternatives there. But primarily on that left wing, again, brilliant at resisting pressure on his back, brilliant at coming inside and making these small combinations. And then he's got a really sort of tenacious ability to get his shot away. He's very sort of goal oriented. Yeah. He's very front footed. My concern, and I know you mentioned sort of, are there any worries with how his game might scale up, is one, moving to a big team like Manchester City, you kind of become a cog in that team. Yeah. We see
rather than the person. I get that. Yeah.
Grealish, obviously, at Aston Villa comes to mind. I think Marmoush, mentality-wise, probably scales better, because I've seen occasions where he's missed big chances and then he's still gone time and again. So I think that bodes well for him. But we're talking about his volume of shooting. We're talking about how front-footed he is, whether or not teammates might get annoyed, or whether or not he gets restricted in the sense that he's reducing the amount of sort of shooting that he is doing every time he does get the ball. Yeah, that might reduce his impact. So I think that's my other concern.
What you just said there shots. So he's third for shots per 90 in Europe's top 5 leagues out of every player.
Yeah.
And obviously Erling Haaland, we spoke about earlier in the season how Manchester City haven't got a player who's contributing enough to goals other than Erling Haaland. Obviously, Phil Foden's come into the fold now, and he's actually stopped scoring.
Yeah.
Well, not against Ipswich, but he's adding shot volume.
Massively.
Do you know, like huge shot volume. So we can see through a shot map that I've got just how varied his shots are. So he's got like 4 goals in a cluster on the top left of the box, 4 goals here, and then some down the centre, which shows that versatility. And obviously he's played as a 9 primarily for Frankfurt, but these positions, able to swing in behind both sides and obviously use both feet, as you're saying there, to exit on both sides. We can see that his actual shot locations has really good variety across the entire box, which obviously bodes well for City because it means he'll be able to find spaces no matter if he's playing inside left, inside right, centre forward. He's going to be able to fashion a lot of shots from this area.
Yeah.
Do you think if he's going to be shooting quite a lot, do you think that that's something that Pep Guardiola will want to maybe coach out of him, or do you think he'll look to, like Julian Alvarez had a lot of shots when you won the treble, for example.
Sort of this zone here, yeah, these long shots that were
he's
really
a volume
impressive.
shooter, and I think when Julian Alvarez was sold, it felt like you lost a lot of shot volume. You brought in Savinho, who's not really a shooting winger, he's more of a creative winger, likes to pass the ball a lot more than shoot. So do you think that Omar Marmoush is going to add not just versatility, not just technical ability in the small spaces, but he's actually going to add that 10 more goals a season to City just purely through ball striking and shot volume?
I think that's the idea. With Marmoush, one thing that differentiates him from Grealish, in my opinion, is the ability to get his shot away quickly.
Yeah.
Now, Grealish gets into these zones and he does take shots, but in trying to shift the ball and take that shot, Grealish takes time and his shots often get blocked. Whereas Marmoush, he's somebody who feints a lot. He makes the opponent bite, and then once they have bitten to that feint, he shifts the ball and takes a shot very quickly. And against settled defences, against packed small spaces, you need that quality to prevent your shot getting blocked. So I think, in a way, we are going to see that. Whether or not he has that, responsibility that he's had in his previous club, I don't think so. I think in general that will diminish slightly. But that's by nature of having so many other good players that you can't just feed the ball into him and just let him sort of carry it and take a shot most possessions. I don't think that's reasonable. So in a way, I think he'll become used as a tool, particularly I think picking up the ball in deeper areas and carrying it, particularly resisting the pressure on his back in wide areas. I think they're 2 of his strongest qualities by far, but then also trying to run him behind for the likes of Foden, for the likes of De Bruyne to find him. And not only Haaland, it basically gives City an extra player to target in those attacking situations, and he can, create a chance for himself out of very little, which is like the qualities that we've been lacking outside of, Julian Alvarez's transfer away. Yeah,
I think you touched on Julian Alvarez, and I think this is definitely something that City lost Julian Alvarez in the summer. Lost a lot of shots, lost goals.
And that pressing ability as well.
Yeah, the pressing ability. And I think they've kind of looked at it and gone, we've made a mistake here by not replacing the goals, the shots. I don't know what the plan was, or maybe Kevin De Bruyne, obviously.
I think the plan was they thought Foden and Bob would be good enough in those false 9 areas.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bob's gone out with an injury. De Bruyne didn't pop back with that fitness, and Foden had a tough start to the season, so there's kind of a knock-on effect there. But I suppose that was the rationale.
Yeah, and I just, like you just said there, I think having the versatility is really good, and I think having obviously the shot volume is really good. But one thing you're talking about is press resistance in the pocket, being able to dance out of pressure. And I've actually got quite a lot of good stuff here that are outside the goals for Marmoush, because whilst he is a goal scorer, he's also a creator, hence why he's top for goals and assists, only second to Salah actually. So he's created 13 chances in the Bundesliga from take-ons, with 6 of them being converted into goals, which is tied with Jamie Gittins at Dortmund, which is obviously really, really good. He's also top in the Bundesliga for progressive carries into the penalty area, carries into the final third, and touches in the attacking area. So if we actually think about the way Manchester City are going to set up, for example, this situation we've got right here, if the block is just shifting even deeper, he's very good at driving into the box, but also picking the ball up in the box consistently and being able to hold the ball in them spaces and obviously convert and assist. So do you think it'll give teams another person to be very, very cautious of, because I think when City are attacking the box now, obviously most recently Foden's coming in off the right, but I think if they do play him inside the pitch, obviously you've got De Bruyne, but he's more hanging outside the box here, like in these spaces. Whereas if Haaland attacks the box and then another player comes forward, it's almost like you've got two strikers on the pitch, which is a similar role to what Alvarez played.
Yep.
Do you agree that it's almost going to go to a two-striker formation?
I think the beauty of having that third midfielder who can push up means, one, you get that extra body in the box. Two, Haaland's free to kind of attack the back post like he likes to do, and you've got still a body at the front post attacking it. We've seen Gundogan in the past attack the box like that, but whether or not he's got the legs to go up and down like that, is yet to be seen this season. One reason why I'm a big fan of having Marmoush play almost as that right number 10 is because you get Marmoush in those inside right channels where he's shown that he's successful, and you get Haaland in those inside left channels where he's sort of better at scoring his chances as well. Haaland at the back post for those crosses, and that as a balance seems really nice to me. Just because especially you got so many players focused on Erling Haaland in the box that there will be opportunities for Marmoush to pop up in those boxes. He's got really nice movement. I've seen examples where he kind of darts to the front post, and then when the centre-back goes with him, he floats in behind him and gets the tap in there. So there's one direct consequence of having him in that side. Secondarily, the indirect consequences by having him in the box, by knowing he's a exciting, dangerous, flary goal scorer.
Frees up Haaland.
It frees up Haaland, and it frees up space on the edge of the box. Like Kovacic, he scored recently.
Yeah, from the edge, just from here.
Edge of the box. He's got 4 goals in Premier League season, his highest tally in a campaign so far. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Kovacic get more goals in games that Marmoush did play.
And even De Bruyne hanging on the edge, obviously.
Foden, Gundogan. It's there's a lot to like in it, and whether that's for his individual quality or the depth that he provides, I think both boxes are ticked in such a busy season.
Yeah, so I'm just going to play devil's advocate and just basically
I mean, we need to talk about the weaknesses,
give you context on the weaknesses. So, as I mentioned before about the data, Omar Marmoush is overperforming on both his expected goals and expected assists, the most out of any player in Europe right now. But to give you examples of who he's up against, so these are also the players who are overperforming their expected assists and goals the most, which basically means they're really good at finishing, or they're delivering to really good finishers.
Or they're lucky.
Which, So the players around him are Retegui from Atalanta, who's brilliant centre forward. But then after that, you've got Salah, Kane, Saka, Isaac, Lookman, Dembele, Lewandowski, which are world-class players. Do you believe that Omar Marmoush taking these performance numbers to Manchester City, do you believe that he's going to be able to, whilst he might not be as clinical in front of goal, as we mentioned, the set pieces, he's a really good corner taker as well, we spoke about that. But do you think throwing him in at Manchester City, he's going to be delivering to better finishers? Is he going to be getting in better positions? Or do you think he's going to struggle to get in the spaces? We've spoke about him getting in this space here. Do you think this space is going to be as free as it is for City as it is for Frankfurt?
I think it would be foolish to think that he's going to get the same chances.
The time on the ball and the less bodies in the box and stuff. Do you think this is going to be well more crowded out for him in these spaces?
Yeah, I do think if I'm talking about his quality, he's still got the skill set to thrive in the situation that Manchester City do find themselves in. So the first situation obviously is that deep build-up. City do still find themselves in transition situations, and they do need somebody to carry the ball up the field. With the lack of physicality in someone like Bernardo Silva in terms of his speed and his carrying ability, he also fills that sort of void a little bit. If we're talking strictly about his numbers, and I think that's sort of the biggest question, will he be able to replicate those numbers? I think, one, his tendency and his willingness to shoot edge of the area is, a really big positive, because his chances will come around those areas. He scored goals from there in the past. Manchester City, by penning teams in the box quite frequently, will give him chances in the box as well. One sort of question mark I have with him is sometimes when the ball is fizzed into him, his first touch can bobble up and he can be slightly loose. But in general, when it does come into him, he can carry it and turn and roll defenders really well. So I think he's going to benefit by creating chances for other people, get the ball, turn and lay it off to somebody on the edge of the area. I think he's going to rack up more assist numbers than I think people will expect. And I don't think, I don't think he'll massively overperform his XG, but with his set pieces, it'll look like he is. And on top of that, like I think even the season prior, he was sort of around about his XG. So
yeah, he was. Yeah.
Even if he regresses completely to a season,
that's still 12 goals last season, which he got 12
goals.
expected goals. So he's clearly getting in the right positions to generate the chances,
Exactly.
and he's clearly got the quality to finish them. And even if this is a purple patch, limiting him to 12 goals from 12 expected goals is still a good return for this City team.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's the purple patch per se. I just think he's being used with a lot of responsibility because he has the quality to excel in that way. And Manchester City might not give him as much responsibility. He's not a Kevin De Bruyne, for example.
Might get less touches.
Yeah, exactly. But for example, if De Bruyne doesn't play, he might get more responsibility and showcase that quality then.
What do you make of this signing as a whole? And how good? What are you going to expect from him? I'm not asking for direct involvement.
No.
What do you think is the good, the bad?
If I do a quick summary, I would say, one, I'm really happy with the signing.
Yeah.
I think with players like this, he feels like his game will age really well. I know he's quite physical, he's very quick, he carries the ball well.
Very nippy.
Yeah.
I didn't even mention that, but like when we were talking about the small space, he's very mobile.
You know, I've got a list of players who I compared him to, and it's not sort of direct comparisons, but I think he's got a bit of all of these guys in his game. But Leroy Sané, I think his frame is
got long legs,
that long lane, that turning, that carrying ability. So I think Sané is probably the closest that I'd say. I think there's a bit of Musiala to his game, a bit of Savinho to his game. I've seen comparisons actually online about a young Suarez, and obviously Suarez became the player that he did, far later. But and Marmoush is obviously 25.
Because he started taking off at a later age than
But people have compared him to a young Suarez, and obviously he's not a young player at the moment. But that's another comparison I've seen made. I think a bit of Gabriel Jesus, a bit of Karim Benzema in that sort of all-round nature.
There's a 9, but can do the
float
rest.
into the wing. So I think they're kind of the comparisons I've made. In terms of what I'm expecting, one, I'm sort of really happy with the signing. I think as long as he can contribute and be technically secure, but also provide some of that risk and that goal threat that we've been lacking a bit. A reason I really like the Doku signing and his performances, even if he's not chipped him with massive amounts of goal contributions, is because he forces the issue. Yeah, I think Marmoush can force the issue and provide a bit more of that final third, goal threat and creativity. He adds that fine margin threat in terms of corners and set pieces, which against stubborn blocks, we've seen it with Arsenal work. Manchester City have lacked it a little bit with De Bruyne's injuries, and when De Bruyne's not there, I think Marmoush is a player who can kind of take that responsibility on his back. He's a very sort of dedicated and sort of, he keeps going. He's quite relentless in his game. I just hope he doesn't shy away from that by moving to a big club. Yeah. Are you worried about him potentially? Obviously, you made the point about being a cog in a team rather than being the team, being the man. So he's going from a team where he's having the most shots, having the most dribbles, you can try everything. But now he's going to go to a team where he has to maybe play a little bit more of a selfless role. Is that one of the things that you're worried about with scaling him to a City team? Slightly, and I think that will only come if he's just sort of forced on the touchline and stuck there kind of thing. But in the same way, and I'm not saying he's like Neymar, but in the same way that Neymar moved to Barcelona and he had the freedom to pick it up here and he had the freedom to, play a little bit more inside. I think that's sort of ideally how you want to use him. But can you afford to use him like that? Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe it might take a few months to kind of give him that trust. But look, I certainly think we need extra players in that attacking line. I think Grealish might be moving on next season anyway. So for me, it makes sense. I think he's a really good player, and I kind of like signing these players at this age profile. We've kind of got players on the young end, we've got players on the old end. You give them 4 or 5 years, and then they're ready to sell or extend. Yeah. I mean, he could certainly, like, if he comes into his own, there's still about 8 seasons there, 8 seasons there. So I'm really happy with it. We need to wait to see, because Bundesliga to now. Didn't Salah sign at a similar age to Liverpool? I think so. Maybe a tiny bit younger, but roughly. So and he's still going. So perfect. Right, thank you very much for watching this episode of the Overlap Breakdown. If you did enjoy, please like, comment and share it around, and we'll be back next week for more Premier League reviews.